The Zorgax Empire launched their death ships and obliterated Frontier Colony 9, slaughtering every man, woman, and child. The terrified survivors huddled aboard orbiting freighters, jumping away just before the colony itself exploded in a hellish inferno. Across the galaxy, those under the Zorgax boot quivered in renewed terror. But this time, the humans were coming. Admiral Noah Campbell knew the cost of failure. The Indomitable, humanity's secret weapon, was our only hope against the Zorgax onslaught. He assembled a crew of the best Earth had to offer, from grizzled veterans to brilliant young officers on their first command. Among them was Commander Jake Thompson, Campbell's closest friend and right-hand man. As they made final preparations, an unexpected ally emerged. Nox, a denobulin insectoid from a once proud species, now enslaved by the Zorgax. He brought tantalizing whispers of rebellion among the subjugated races and a path to potential allies in the heart of enemy space. Campbell had to put aside his distrust. This was an opportunity they couldn't ignore. But many of the crew weren't ready to fight alongside a denobulin, with the loss of Frontier 9 still a raw wound. Campbell struggled to keep the ship in line as they departed on a quest that could free the galaxy or doom humanity to extinction. In the darkest reaches of space, the Zorgax leadership took note of this new threat. The Indomitable was sailing into the Dragon's Maw, and the fate of worlds hung in the balance. The Indomitable sliced through the void, the distant stars blurring into streaks of light. Nox hunched over the navigation console, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic displays. The Zorgax supply line is heavily guarded, he clicked, but if we strike fast and hard, we can cripple their logistics in this sector. Admiral Campbell nodded grimly. All hands to battle stations. Gunners, lock onto those freighters. Let's show these bastards what human ingenuity can do. The bridge erupted into activity as klaxons blared. Jake Thompson took his position at the weapons control, hands flying over the interface. The Indomitable shuddered as her advanced ion cannons unleashed a storm of fire. The vacuum of space ignited with silent explosions as Zorgax ships crumpled like tin cans. But the enemy fought back viciously. Lances of plasma scorched the Indomitable's armored hull. Deep within the ship, Chief Engineer O'Connor struggled to contain the damage. Sparks cascaded from ruptured conduits as he barked orders to his team. Suddenly, a power surge ripped through engineering. Liam was engulfed in a blaze of electricity, his body convulsing as he crumpled to the deck. "Man down!" someone screamed. "Get Doc Patel!" In the medbay, Samira Patel worked frantically to stabilize Liam's vital signs. His skin was charred, his breathing shallow. Around her, the injured began to pile up as the battle raged on. Each new wound was a stark reminder of the price they paid for defiance. Hours later, the Indomitable limped away from the carnage, her once gleaming hull pitted with scars. In the dimmed light of the bridge, Campbell surveyed his exhausted crew. They had struck a blow against the Zorgax, but at a steep cost. Nox chittered softly, breaking the silence. "There is a place we can find allies and repair the ship, but we must tread carefully. Trust will not come easily between your kind and those who have suffered under the Zorgax." Campbell met the alien's unreadable gaze. "We have to try. Take us in." The Indomitable set course for a barren moon, a mere speck in the vastness of space. As the ship entered orbit, Campbell gathered his team for a critical mission. Lieutenant Commander Petrov checked the charge on his sidearm. His heart made. Trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. On the moon's crater-scarred surface, harsh winds whipped at the delegation's envirosuits. Zara, the Ixari leader, cut an imposing figure in her battle-worn armor. Her compound eyes narrowed as she sized up the humans. "Why should we aid you?" she hissed. "Your species is weak. The Zorgax will crush you like all the others." Campbell met her gaze unflinchingly. "Because we have something the Zorgax fear, something that can turn the tide. But we can't do it alone." As he spoke, a distant rumble shook the ground. Petrov's scanner lit up with warnings. "Zorgax signatures! They found us!" On the Indomitable, Jake Thompson watched in horror as a Zorgax stealth frigate materialized from the void, its weapons already charging. "Evasive maneuvers!" he barked, Get a firing solution now! The two ships danced a deadly waltz, trading blistering salvos. The Indomitable's experimental shields held, but barely. In the medbay, Samira Patel fought to keep Liam alive as the ship bucked and rolled. On the moon, Campbell and Zara fought side by side as Zorgak's troopers swarmed from dropships. Petrov unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, his face grim. As the last trooper fell, Zara turned to Campbell, her manner tinged with newfound respect. Perhaps there is strength in your species after all. The Ixari will fight with you. Back on the Indomitable, Thompson sagged with relief as the Zorgak's frigate broke apart, its reactor going critical. But the respite was short-lived. The comm crackled with a desperate plea from a nearby planet, begging for salvation from a Zorgak's assault. In the medbay, Liam's life signs fluctuated wildly. Samira looked up at Campbell as he entered, her eyes haunted. He's not going to make it, sir. Not without proper facilities. Campbell's gaze hardened as he stared at the star-filled viewport. Countless lives hung in the balance. The weight of an impossible choice settled on his shoulders, like a leaden cloak. The Indomitable and her crew stood on the precipice, the fate of humanity and all alien species teetering on a razor's edge. Campbell's mind focused as he made the call. Helm, set course for the Allori homeworld. Maximum speed. The Indomitable's engines thrummed to life, propelling them towards yet another battle. In the medbay, Liam's monitors beeped steadily as Samira worked. She glanced up at Campbell, her eyes hollow. I've done all I can, sir. Campbell nodded grimly. We'll get him proper care soon, but right now there's a planet that needs us. The ship dropped out of FTL and chaos erupted on the monitor. Zorgak's cruisers swarmed around a blue-green world, raining death upon its surface. All hands, battle stations! Campbell's voice rang through the ship. Weapons, target those cruisers. Draw their fire away from the planet. The Indomitable surged forward, her ion cannons blazing. Zorgak's ships peeled away from their assault, turning to face this new threat. Deep in engineering, Liam struggled to his feet, ignoring the searing pain. Status report, he barked. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, looked up in shock. Sir, you shouldn't be... I said status, Liam growled, steadying himself against a console. Chen swallowed hard. Shields at 62% and falling. We've got power fluctuations in decks 3 through 7. Liam's fingers flew across the interface. Reroute auxiliary power. We need those shields. Above them, a feminine voice spoke. Adjusting power distribution for optimal efficiency. Athena, the ship's AI, intoned. Damage readouts shifted, stabilizing. On the bridge, Jake Thompson gritted his teeth as another barrage slammed into the Indomitable. Shields down to 40%, he called out. Campbell activated the ship-wide comm. Ground team, prepare for deployment. We're going in. Minutes later, Campbell led a strike force onto the planet's surface. Zara moved like liquid shadow beside him, her alien physiology perfectly suited for combat. They pushed through the charred remains of an Allori settlement, plasma bolts sizzling past. There, Zara pointed with a clawed hand. A group of terrified Allori huddled behind a crumbling wall. Their feline features were contorted in fear, tufted ears pressed flat against their heads. Campbell raised his rifle, providing covering fire as Zara sprinted to the civilians. An Allori child stumbled, and Zara scooped her up without breaking stride. Go, Campbell shouted. I'll hold them off. As the group retreated, Petrov's voice crackled over the comm. Sir, you need to see this. Campbell found Petrov crouched behind a ruined building, his face ashen. Look, the lieutenant commander said, pointing to a clearing. Campbell's blood ran cold. Zorgak's soldiers were herding Allori into stasis pods, methodically sorting them by some unknown criteria. They're not just attacking, Petrov whispered. They're harvesting. A high-pitched wail cut through the air. An Allori female struggled against her captors, reaching desperately for a pod where her child had been sealed away. Campbell's finger tightened on the trigger. Not on my watch, he snarled. Back on the Indomitable, Samira worked feverishly. An elderly Elori watched her hands moving over Liam's prone form. "You use wrong herb," the Elori said softly. "This better." She held out a vibrant purple leaf. Samira hesitated, then took the offering. As she applied it to Liam's wounds, his vitals began to stabilize. "Thank you," Samira breathed. The Elori simply nodded, a spark of understanding passing between them. On the planet's surface, Campbell's team fought their way to an ornate structure. An Elori in elaborate robes stumbled out, supported by two younger acolytes. "High Priestess Naya," one of the acolytes said, "we must get you to safety." Campbell gestured to the evacuation shuttle. "This way!" As they ran, a crimson beam lanced through the air. Campbell felt himself shoved aside as Zara took the hit meant for him. She crumpled to the ground, dark ichor oozing from the wound. "Zara!" Campbell dragged her to cover. "Hold on! We're getting out of here!" The shuttle doors sealed shut, and they rocketed towards the Indomitable. On the bridge, Jake called out, "FTL drive charged!" "Get us out of here," Campbell ordered. The stars blurred, and the battle faded behind them. In the sudden quiet, Campbell turned to Naya. "What do the Zorgax want with your people?" Naya's feline eyes were filled with ancient sorrow. "They have hunted us for generations. Our world holds secrets they covet." Campbell's mind raced. Another piece of the puzzle, but still so much unknown. Knox chittered from his station. "There is a Zorgax command hub in Sector 9. If we can infiltrate it..." Campbell looked around the bridge. His crew was battered, exhausted, but in their eyes he saw an unwavering grit. "Plot a course," he said. "We're taking the fight to them." The Indomitable's engines hummed to life, carrying them deeper into the heart of Zorgax space. The Indomitable's engines thrummed as it approached Zorgax Prime, a world of churning magma and jagged obsidian peaks. Admiral Campbell surveyed his team in the cramped shuttle bay. Commander Thompson checked his disguised comms device, while Lieutenant Petrov triple-checked the weapons concealed within their trader outfits. Dr. Patel's fingers danced over a medical kit, her eyes betraying a mix of purpose and fear. "Remember," Campbell said, his voice low, "we're in and out. Follow Knox's intel to the letter." The shuttle touched down on a landing pad swirling with toxic fumes. Zorgax guards, towering insectoid forms in gleaming armor, scrutinized their credentials. Campbell felt sweat trickle down his spine as the alien's compound eyes narrowed. "Proceed," the guard clicked, waving them through. They moved through crowded thoroughfares, dodging lumbering cargo haulers and darting hover transports. The air stank of sulfur and ozone. Campbell's skin crawled as he saw Elori slaves shuffling past, vacant-eyed and chained. A shadowy figure beckoned from an alleyway. "Craxus?" Campbell whispered. The Zorgax defector's mandibles twitched. Quickly, the research facility's patrols changed in 7 minutes. Craxus led them through a maze of tunnels, the rock walls uncomfortably warm to the touch. They emerged into a sterile corridor bathed in harsh blue light. "These will get you inside," Craxus said, handing over security badges. "But be warned, the experiments within, they are an abomination." The team donned Zorgax lab uniforms, the material chafing against human skin. They passed through a series of checkpoints, Campbell's heartbeat thundering in his ears with each scan. Finally, they entered a cavernous chamber filled with rows of tanks. Each contained a twisted hybrid of alien species, limbs fused at unnatural angles, organs pulsing beneath translucent skin. Dr. Patel stifled a gasp. "Over here," Petrov hissed, gesturing to a computer terminal. As they began downloading files, an alarm blared. Zorgax troops poured into the chamber, plasma rifles raised. "We've been made!" Thompson shouted, diving behind a console as energy bolts sizzled past. The lab erupted into chaos. Tanks shattered, spilling writhing experiments onto the floor. Campbell fired his concealed weapon, downing 2 Zorgax soldiers. A familiar battle cry rang out as Zara burst through a ventilation shaft, her alien physiology allowing her to move with liquid grace. She tore into the Zorgax ranks, buying precious seconds. "The data core!" Campbell yelled to Petrov. "We need it!" Petrov nodded, sprinting towards a glowing pillar. A Zorgax soldier took aim, but Thompson tackled it, energy blast searing his side. "Jake!" Campbell dragged his wounded comrade to cover. Dr. Patel worked frantically to stabilize Thompson as Zara and the Marines held the perimeter. Campbell's mind raced. They had the data, but escape seemed impossible. Suddenly, the air shimmered. A vast, pulsing mass of neural tissue filled one wall of the chamber. Countless eyes blinked open, focusing on Campbell. "Foolish humans," 1,000 voices spoke as one. "You cannot comprehend the power we seek." Campbell's blood ran cold, the supreme overmind itself. "Your world will be the first to fall," it continued. "Our weapon even now aligns with your pitiful planet." Petrov's voice crackled over the comm. "Admiral, coordinates transmitted. The Indomitable is in range." Campbell met the overmind's gaze. "Not today," he snarled. The chamber rocked as the Indomitable's barrage struck. Alarms wailed throughout the facility. "Move!" Campbell ordered, hefting Thompson's semi-conscious form. They fought their way back to the shuttle, Zara providing lethal cover. As they lifted off, Campbell saw Craxus surrounded by his own kind, shouting words of defiance. The Indomitable's hangar bay loomed ahead, a promise of safety, but on the tactical display, a swarm of Zorgax ships converged. Campbell gripped the shuttle's controls. They had struck a blow, but the real battle was just beginning. The shuttle bay doors slammed shut as Campbell's team stumbled onto the Indomitable's deck. Alarms blared, and the ship lurched as it engaged evasive maneuvers. "Medical team to the hangar now," Campbell barked into his comm. He knelt beside Thompson, whose breathing came in ragged gasps. "Stay with us, Jake." Dr. Patel worked frantically, her hands a blur as she applied emergency treatments. "We need to get him to the medbay immediately." As they rushed Thompson through the corridors, the ship shuddered under enemy fire. Campbell's mind raced. They had the data, but at what cost? In the command center, Knox's chittering filled the air as his clawed appendages danced across the tactical displays. Indomitable's shields at 37%, multiple Zorgax cruisers on intercept course. Campbell's eyes narrowed. Evasive pattern delta. Let's see if we can... A deafening explosion rocked the ship. Sparks cascaded from ruptured conduits as the lights flickered. "Hull breach on deck 7, an ensign called out. "Sealing emergency bulkheads." "Status on the FTL drive?" Campbell demanded. Liam's voice crackled over the comm, strained but determined. "Working on it, sir. Give me 2 minutes." Campbell gritted his teeth. They didn't have 2 minutes. Zara materialized at his side, alien blood still dripping from her claws. "Let me help," she hissed. "The Ixari have tricks your kind do not." Campbell nodded, and Zara's fingers flew across the unfamiliar controls. The ship's trajectory shifted, weaving through the Zorgax formation with impossible precision. "Sir," Petrov called out, "I've decrypted part of the Zorgax data core. You need to see this." Campbell's blood ran cold as the information scrolled across the screen. Genetic assimilation, galactic consumption. The true scope of the Overmind's plans dwarfed even their worst fears. A proximity alarm shrieked. "Zorgax boarding craft attached to Airlock 3, Knox reported. "Seal all bulkheads," Campbell ordered. "Dispatch security teams. We can't let them..." The ship rocked again and the lights died. In the eerie glow of emergency backup power, Campbell saw the fear etched on his crew's faces. "Sir," Liam's voice came through, barely audible over the chaos. "FTL drive online, but we need coordinates." Campbell's mind raced. Where could they go? Earth was too far, and they couldn't lead the Zorgax armada back to humanity's homeworld. A series of chittering sounds filled the command center. Knox stood at his station, mandibles working furiously as he input a string of coordinates. "What are you?" Campbell began, but Knox cut him off. "No time," the insectoid rasped. "Trust me." Campbell hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Helm, punch it." The stars blurred as the Indomitable leapt into FTL. On the tactical display, a swarm of Zorgax ships converged on their previous position. In the sudden quiet, Campbell turned to Knox. What did you do? Knox's compound eyes flickered. Bought us time, but not much. He gestured to the readouts. Those coordinates, a hidden fallback base. Last refuge for those who once defied the Zorgax. How do you know this? Petrov asked, suspicion evident in his voice. Knox's exoskeleton seemed to sag. Because I helped build it. Before I was changed. The implications hung heavy in the air. Campbell opened his mouth to respond, but an urgent call from the medbay interrupted. Admiral, Dr. Patel's voice was tight with worry. It's Commander Thompson. You should come quickly. Campbell sprinted through the corridors, his heart pounding. As he burst into the medbay, the acrid smell of burnt flesh assaulted his nostrils. Thompson lay on a medical bed, his torso a mess of charred skin and hastily applied bandages. His eyes fluttered open as Campbell approached. Sir, Jake rasped, his voice barely above a whisper. Did we make it? Campbell clasped his XO's hand. We did, Jake. Thanks to you. Now rest and let the doc patch you up. Thompson's grip tightened. The mission, Earth. You have to. I know, Campbell said softly. We'll finish this, I promise. As Thompson slipped into unconsciousness, Campbell turned to Dr. Patel. What are his chances? The doctor's eyes were grim. Uncertain, the next few hours will be critical. Campbell nodded, his fist tight. He strode back to the command center, where the assembled crew waited in tense silence. Status report, he barked. FTL drive stable, Liam reported. ETA to Knox's coordinates, 6 hours. Zorgax pursuit? Campbell asked. Petrov shook his head. Nothing on long-range sensors, but they'll regroup soon enough. Campbell surveyed his battered crew. They were exhausted, pushed to their limits, but in their eyes he saw an unwavering drive. Listen up, he said, his voice carrying across the command center. What we found on Zorgax Prime changes everything. The Overmind isn't just a threat to Earth or our allies. It's a cancer that will consume the entire galaxy if we don't stop it. He pulled up the tactical display, highlighting a massive structure at the heart of Zorgax territory. This is our target, the Zorgax throne world. We take it out, we cripple their entire empire. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crew. Petrov stepped forward, his face pale. Sir, with all due respect, that's suicide. We don't have the firepower or the manpower to... You're right, Campbell cut him off. We don't. Not yet. He gestured to the coordinates Knox had provided. But we're not alone in this fight. There are others out there who've been resisting the Zorgax for generations. It's time we join forces. He looked around the room, meeting each crew member's gaze. I won't lie to you. The odds are stacked against us. But right now, we're all that stands between the Overmind and the annihilation of everything we know. Campbell's voice hardened. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to lick our wounds, gather our allies, and hit the Zorgax with everything we've got. Because if we don't, there won't be a galaxy left to save. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity. As his crew sprang into action, Campbell felt a presence at his side. He turned to see Zara, her alien features unreadable. Your kind continues to surprise me, Admiral, she said softly. Perhaps there is hope for this galaxy after all. Campbell nodded grimly. There has to be, because we're sure as hell not going down without a fight.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.